Hey, today I want to show you some brioche techniques to go along with the Great British Bake Off knit along from Jimmy Bean's Wool. So let's first talk about the structure of brioche. Okay, so brioche itself has A rounds and B rounds, and you'll see that the A rounds are done with the main color, the B rounds are done with the contrast color. So each round basically works every other stitch. So you're going to be slipping and doing a slip one yarn over on every other stitch on each of those A or B rounds. It's a little confusing at first until you get into it. So let's get into it. So first thing we need to do is do the setup. So for the setup, I'm going to use this as my main color and this is my contrast color. And this was my border, so that's a completely separate thing. It helps a little to see exactly how it starts being built if you have a different color for the border. So I'm just going to hold this in here. And with this setup, I'm going to start by knitting this first stitch with the new color. So knit, and then the slip one yarn over. So to bring your yarn to the front, and you're going to slip this one, and at the same time you're making a yarn over for that piece. So it's not really anchored until you knit the next stitch, but you can see that now I have knit stitch and a slip one yarn over, so it's kind of like this yarn over wraps around the original stitch, and then I have a knit one. So keep going, slip one yarn over, knit one, slip one yarn over, knit one. So see, there's alternating standard knit stitches with these kind of doubled up slip one yarn overs. Okay, and so I'm just going to get across this. We're going to cover in a second, we'll cover how to do the slip one yarn over if you're a continental knitter, because it's a little bit different. But for a knit stitch here, or for a slip one yarn over between knit stitches, you just bring your yarn to the front, slip that stitch, and then go to knit the next one, and it will automatically do the yarn over. So, but you can see that basically I'm slipping every other stitch, and I'm only working half of the stitches in this first portion of the round. So, okay. All right, so I've got this, I had an even number of stitches on this swatch, so you can see that this yarn over is kind of loose and hanging out over here. So because this whole thing is done in the round, we're actually just going to slide it to the end of this needle here so I can do the B setup round. Okay, so here's my other yarn. Okay. Got the kinky needles today. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is do a slip one yarn over on that first stitch, okay, and then we're going to purl, because this is a brioche rib. So purl one, slip one yarn over, purl one. So you could hypothetically slip the whole stitch, then bring your yarn to the front to make that slip one yarn over when you're doing the B row, but I find it just as easy to wrap around the front stitch and then slip it, because it's the same motion as the purl but without actually taking a new stitch up through the, so slip one yarn over, purl, slip one yarn over, purl, slip one yarn over, purl. Yeah, so you could do the slip one and then the yarn over and then purl. Slip one, then yarn over, then purl. But I find it's a little faster to just wrap it like you would a purl but then slip it. So I'm wrapping like I would a purl, but then just slipping it off instead of slipping it first and then wrapping. So that one needs to be doubled here. Okay, so now we're prepped. So now you can see that we have both of the new colors, the main color and the contrast color, separate from the border. I'm going to slip to the end. I have all of my new colors on the needle, and I've got doubled stitches on every other one. Okay, so because this bluey green is our main color, we're ready to start a row with the main color. So we're just going to keep going and ribbing here. So that's the brioche knit, and then the slip one yarn over, and then the brioche knit, and slip one yarn over, brioche knit, like that. So if you're doing continental, let me swap everything around here. Okay, so if you're continental, then you're going to want to bring your yarn to the front and slip, and then brioche knit. Bring your yarn to the front as you slip this stitch, and then, you know, so it wraps around over the needle, and then brioche knit. Bring your yarn to the front, in front of this needle, and then there, like that, and like that. Okay. So that's your slip one yarn over, brioche knit, slip one yarn over, brioche knit. Of course, I'm getting really tight because continental is not my normal knitting. Brioche knit, slip one yarn over, brioche knit. Okay. Oops, we got one more that actually needs a slip one yarn over. Okay. So normally you wouldn't, you know, have your single stitches hanging out here on the ends. You'd be in the round, or you'd have some edge stitches. For this swatch, it just gets a little bit tricky. Okay, so now we need to bring the main color, oops, the contrast color around. Second. I find it's really helpful when I'm doing brioche to have my main color on one side and my contrast color on the other side. It helps me keep them from getting all tangled. But of course that's not what we're doing right now because it's a tutorial video. Okay, so we're ready to do the B round for round, you know, 1. So we've got to do, it's a yarn over. Here, let me do a continental for this as well. Okay, so yarn over and purl, and a brioche purl. Okay, so this slip one yarn over, always bring your working yarn in front of your needle and slip, and then of course for brioche purl, you can tell continental purls are not my jam. I can do it, I'm just not very good at it. Okay, so slip and purl, slip and purl. Oops. And when I'm saying purl, I mean brioche purl. So we're slipping here and then doing a brioche purl. So a brioche purl works together the yarn over and the original stitch. So here's our slip and a brioche purl with the 2 strands together, slip, brioche purl. Okay, so I'm going to finish this right-handed because it's just easier for me. Okay, so purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, like so. And make sure that the one on the end, you've got both pieces to do the brioche purl. Okay, so you can see how this starts to take shape. You can see that that blue-green is facing on the knit stitches, and when you flip it over to the back, that pink is facing on the purl stitches. Okay, so this is the beginning of the brioche. This is how you set it up. So let's take a look at the pattern we're working with. Okay, right now I'm finishing up a purl round, so this would be a B round. So here's my brioche purl, my slip, brioche purl, slip, and brioche purl. Okay, so sometimes your yarn, at the beginning and end of the round, your yarn will move. So just make sure that you've got both parts of this for the brioche purl. So if your working yarn, your A working yarn, your main color, moves around, or like, because it won't just stay here after you make this yarn over, it's going to move as you're working the round. So you got to make sure that you lay it back over the needle so that you have that yarn over intact from the previous row to do your brioche purl. Okay, and then this is the beginning of the round marker, and you'll see that I just did that, and now I've got another doubled stitch. So there was a doubled stitch here and then a double stitch here. So the key here is that remembering that at the beginning of the round you need to switch yarns. So now I'm going to switch, and you can get cues from your knitting, like you see that this is the main color knit column, so that means that I'm going to be knitting it with the main color. So it's time to switch to the main color and then do my brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit. Okay, and this pattern has something interesting, an interesting feature in it, where we have these 3 purl stitches, but they only are purled with the contrast color. So for on the main color rows, on the A rows, we're just going to slip these. Slip all 3 stitches. We've got our yarn hanging it back out here. Slip the marker, and then we can actually work the next portion of the chart. Okay, so just make sure that when you're slipping it, you leave yourself plenty of room. You keep the stitches a little stretched out here so that it doesn't start to pull those stitches really tight. Okay, so this round, I'm following my chart here, and we have an increase here. So the brioche increase is going to happen on the main color round. So we're going to brioche knit into this doubled stitch, right? And then yarn over, and then brioche knit into it again. So just make sure that you're getting both the yarn over and the original stitch. So now we have 3 stitches in the main color coming out of that one column. Okay, so we'll keep going and then deal with our decrease. So the decrease is a knit 3 together, and so you just have to make sure that you get this. So here, let's take a look at these real quick. So we need these 3 stitches. So there's the main color stitch and its associated yarn over, the contrast color stitch that's all by itself, and then another main color stitch with its yarn over. So these 3 stitches, we got to get through all of those parts of the 3 stitches. So the easiest way to drop a stitch in brioche is when you miss this middle stitch. So I'm going to make sure that I get through the main color and its yarn over, through the purl stitch, and through the other main color stitch and its yarn over. Okay, so all 5 of those pieces need to be in this decrease. So I can pull it apart, I can see that it's caught, I can see that everything is on there. That's good. So now I can continue on. And then do my increase, yarn over, brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, yarn over, and then another knit 3 together. So make sure that I've got all 5 of those parts and knit them together, and then slip 1 yarn over, brioche knit, slip 1 yarn over, increase, knit 1, brioche knit, yarn over, brioche knit, slip 1, yarn over, knit 1, and then the decrease, last decrease. So right here it comes up against the edge, so just make sure I get all parts of those and knit those 3 stitches together. So we're back to the 3 stitches that will only be purled, so we're going to slip those and then continue on with the brioche rib. I'm going to go all the way around the round and meet you back here. Okay, as you're coming around and finishing an A round with your main color, you'll see that, here, let's get there, brioche knit, yarn over, slip 1 yarn over, brioche knit, slip 1 yarn over, brioche knit. Okay, so here we are. I've got my working yarn in the front, my contrast color yarn in the front. I've got my working main color yarn in the back. I'm going to bring it to the front to do the slip 1 yarn over, and in slipping this, this stitch usually gets pretty big. You might want to give it a little snug. Try not to snug it too much, or else it'll actually make this whole column skinnier. But give it just a little bit of like normal tension. So I try to do my yarn over, but this yarn isn't anchored, so it just kind of hangs out there. That's why you have to do that little dance at the beginning and make sure that you got it right. So we'll slip at the beginning of the round, and now I'm ready to work with my contrast color on the B round. So I will slip 1 yarn over and purl, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over. Okay, and now we're to these 3 purl stitches, and since we're on a contrast color round, we can purl them. So we will purl 3, just straight up purl 3, and then we're ready to do this portion. Okay, so this is a B round, as evidenced by the fact that we're using the contrast color. So we'll slip 1 yarn over, purl, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl. Okay, so here we've reached the increase, this brioche knit, yarn over brioche knit. And you treat it a little differently when you're working the B round following that. So we're going to slip 1 yarn over, just like normal, but then we're just going to purl this middle stitch of that increase, and then slip 1 yarn over. Okay, so that gets those 3 stitches that were kind of out of sequence, right? So we have 3 stitches in the main color all together instead of having alternating brioche rib stitches. So doing the slip 1 yarn over, purl 1, slip 1 yarn over will get everything back to the same sequence that we've been using. So one of the other things that's really important to wrap your head around when you're doing brioche is that each row that you have, an A or round, row or round, A or B round, is only half of a full round. You need to do both, the A and the B, to have a complete round done. So let's get all the way across. But here's our other, we're going to slip 1 yarn over, right? Purl, and do a slip 1 yarn over, and then we're back on track with the brioche rib patterning. Okay, so I've slipped that marker and we're ready to actually purl these 3 for this kind of dividing line here. So yeah, you can see that we've got slip stitches behind and just those of the main color, and then we only ever purl these stitches with the contrast color. Okay, so slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl, slip 1 yarn over, brioche purl. So it's like when you're doing a brioche rib, it's like the A round only works the knit stitches and the B round only works the purls. And by work I mean actually like creates a new stitch out of the old stitch. All the other ones get a yarn over. So when you're looking at this, you can tell which row you've just worked, number 1, by which color is most prominent. So you see that every stitch has some of this brown, that means that you just worked a contrast color row. But you can also tell because the purl columns here only have the single stitch. They don't have the yarn overs. So because the purl columns only have the single stitch, that means that I just did the B round with my contrast color. If we look over here, you can see that the only ones that have a single stitch are the knit columns, which is my main color, which is my A rounds. So at this point, I've got the A round was the last one worked, and at this point I've got the B round that was the last one worked. Okay, so I want to make sure that you see both decreases. So there's a Brioche Knit 3 together in this that we've already covered, and there's also an Sss Brioche Knit. So the Brioche Knit 3 together, we take all of these parts, right, all these 5 strands of yarn that are the component parts of these 3 stitches, and you've got to make sure that you get all of them, and you knit the 3 together, right? So that's a right-leaning Brioche decrease. So we need to undo this real quick, so I'm just going to do it bit by bit by bit here. Oops, there we go. Okay, so let's do it like for the left leaning, so the Sss Brioche Knit. So you're going to take the yarn over and the stitch that it's yarn overing together and slip them as if to knit, slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit. So we've now got all 3 of these stitches and their yarn overs, so 5 strands of yarn with reverse orientation. We're going to take our left hand needle and make sure it goes through every single portion. So I definitely want to make sure that it's going through this middle purl stitch, and then work the 2 together, or the 3 together, to make a left-leaning brioche decrease. Okay? And if you have to undo one of these, the best way to do it is to hold this yarn taut, stick your needle back through, and pinch underneath it as you bring the old stitch out, because sometimes you'll miss that middle one, and if you're holding it, it doesn't have anywhere to go to unravel all the way down. So that is the left-leaning brioche decrease. Oops, missed grabbing that back. There we go. So you just want to make sure that your yarn overs are always the same orientation as your stitch. So I hope that this video has been helpful in figuring out how to work all of those lovely brioche stitches for this cowl.